सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om everyone. Welcome to the last day of our retreat. We have seen many topics since the first day, and each of those topics have had a connection with each other. So we saw the topic of Jiva, inquiring into who am I, and later that led us into an inquiry into what is this creation. Right? That was the main topic of yesterday, that we cannot just stay at who am I inquiry, because then something would be left out of this equation of inquiring into things. So then the sadhaka will end up with a stage where he will say that I'm okay when I'm sitting in one place, and when I get up from that seat, I feel like world is bothering me. And other side was, if one has not done this who am I inquiry, quietened the mind, and has trained the mind to enjoy its own company, if that is not done, then always, the sadhaka will feel, I'm okay when I'm with everybody, but afraid of solitude. So this we should always keep in mind whenever we do both these vichara. Why are we doing this inquiry? We saw two standpoints about creation. One was relative standpoint, that from a relative standpoint, creation is something which, it's not a new creation, it comes from unmanifest and goes back into unmanifest. Means it becomes manifest and goes back into unmanifest. That seed of unmanifest, that is what we call as Maya. That was a topic we saw later. Okay, but main point is this Maya Shakti is not operating on its own. Even Maya Shakti depends on consciousness for anything to happen within Maya. So whenever we say Brahman is the cause of creation, we should understand along with Maya. And whenever it is said Maya creates this universe, we should understand along with consciousness or Brahman. Okay, both have to be understood together. Consciousness by itself is changeless. It cannot undergo modification. So if consciousness has undergone modification, it is along with Maya. And if sometimes you hear the statement, Maya Shakti, this all is Maya, right? So then we should understand it is not independent Maya, substratum is consciousness. A relative standpoint, because even at this point, we have not gone into whether that consciousness can actually become the cause of creation. Okay, that is why this is called as a relative standpoint. But when we really inquire, can this consciousness be that cause? Then we realize that it is what it is, right? It is by itself, and whatever is appearing is not different from consciousness. That was the absolute standpoint. Giving reality to that wave, giving reality to that mirage water, that is taken away because substratum has been thoroughly understood. Okay. All right, I'll go a little quicker here. That led us into the topic of Maya. We discussed that. And then always creation, Maya, and Ishvara. These topics will always go together. Whenever you talk about Tatpada Vichara, all these topics will go together. But most importantly, this statement that is there, right? Jiva is essentially Brahman. Meaning what? As pure consciousness, that same consciousness is the substratum of this creation. That is the true understanding. But when we are transacting in the world, we cannot transact with consciousness. We have to transact with the name and form. Right? Upadhi, what we call, that is the only thing with which we can transact. With Upadhi, we should not try to become Ishvara. That is the point. With body, we cannot try to become the total. With mind, we cannot become Bhagwan's mind. This question had come up in our discussion during Vedanta Ramanam. Can Jiva ever become Ishvara? Right? Let us say, I try to be the best Jiva. Can I become Ishvara? That is when Guruji had brought this point. He said, Jiva can never become Ishvara. Jiva can always remain as Das of Ishvara, but remember, with Upadhi, means with, identified with body, identified with mind, all those things when we are identified with, this is a part and the whole is Bhagwan. When you let go of those conditionings, at that consciousness level, oneness is pointed out. So that is Jiva Brahma Aikya, what we call. Later we will see that in detail if we have time. But I hope this portion is clear why we say Jiva is Brahma and not Jiva is Ishvara. Okay, Jiva is Brahma when we say we have negated the conditionings. With conditionings, we cannot make the statement Jiva is Ishvara. Okay. Now there might be a question. I know we didn't spend too much time on the topic of Ishvara. If you want to simply understand what is Vedantic understanding of Ishvara, the same consciousness with total Upadhi is called as Ishvara. Consciousness with individual Upadhi is called Jiva, and same consciousness with total Upadhi is called as Ishvara. So with the conditioning, Jiva is the part and Ishvara is the whole. Without the conditioning, the oneness is pointed out. Okay. This topic will come again. Let us keep it here for now and we'll move ahead. Now, whenever we talk about Ishvara topic, a question that comes is, what is Avatara? Right? Avatara is also another Siddhanta. Guruji, you see the precision with which he has given the topics. Karma, he did not say only karma. He said karma Siddhanta. Avatara also is Siddhanta. Avatara means manifest form of the Lord. Okay, that is a simple translation. All of us are very familiar with this Golu setup that we do, right? And one of the rows that we have is all avatars of Bhagwan. Dashavatara, it is said. Now, the question becomes, why does Bhagwan have to take avatara? Right? This all-pervading Bhagwan, Ishvara, why does it have to take avatara? One answer is, there is no reason needed. It is Bhagwan's creation. He can appear wherever he wants. Like if it is our own house, we don't need to seek permission, right? To go in the drawing room, to come to the bedroom, to go to the kitchen. Because it's my house. I can go wherever I want. So Bhagwan's creation is there. He can choose to appear wherever he wants. So first is there is no reason needed actually. But Bhagwan is such, he always likes to give some reason so that we feel, good. Okay, this was the reason why Bhagwan has come. He likes to follow the rules that he has set. So then there are some reasons given. One, it is said Avatara means to come down. And Uddhara means to go up. Okay? So Bhagwan comes down so that jivas can go up. Go up meaning they can evolve. They can purify their heart, and he will teach so many things while he is doing Avatara. Okay, that is one reason. To do Avatara is for Uddhara. Bhagwan comes down so that we can get uplifted. Second, Bhagwan says the reason for his Avatara is to protect Dharma, to protect those who are following Dharma. So if they are sincerely trying to be good and they are unable to be good because of some external factors, then it is said Bhagwan takes Avatara. I'm getting a lot of annotation requests. So if you can please not request me for annotation, that would be helpful. Okay. Next reason for Avatara is call of devotees. It could be one devotee or a group of devotees together. Like Prahlad ji, for example, he made a pratigna, right? He said, my Bhagwan is there everywhere. Hiranyakashipu asked him. So with that call of a devotee, Bhagwan appeared as Narsimha Avatara, appearing in a physical manifest form. During Ram Avatara, all devatas together with Brahmaji go and pray to Lord Vishnu. Jai Jai Suranayaka. Right? They pray to Bhagwan. That is why Bhagwan took Avatara. So like this, there are several situations and scenarios. Within this, Bhagwan can create stories also. Naradji got angry, then he gave Shrapa and so on. But you should understand what is the essence of Avatara. And last is to finish pending jobs. So in certain Avataras, Bhagwan had taken certain vows. Like in Ram Avatara, Bhagwan had taken Ekapati Vrata. Ekapatni Vrata also you can say. But there were so many, devotees who had so many things that they wished Bhagwan could do for them. So then Bhagwan says, not in this life, I will come back again. And in that Avatara, Bhagwan has finished all, pending jobs that were there. But now comes, subtler point about Avatara. So there are 5 key aspects whenever we talk about Avatara. First is called Bhagwan's Nama. So whenever Bhagwan has taken Avatara, what we get is Bhagwan's name. And it comes with a specific form that is called as Rupa. Now these two together become a boat for us to purify our mind and cross over this ocean of samsara. Whenever we chant mantra, right? Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. That mantra itself has a power. And if we just keep chanting with this idea that Bhagwan, may my weaknesses go away, may auspiciousness come in me. May you be victorious, may Jaya belong to you. Shri Ram, Jaya Ram, right? Let the Jaya belong to you and you alone. Because on my strength, there are so many things inside I see which I'm not able to cross over. So that is the purpose of Avatara, so that we can have Bhagwan's name and purify ourselves. So many devotees have crossed over it. Valmiki ji took Bhagwan's name, that too ulta. Mara, Mara, Mara. Even that helped him purify his mind. So that is one aspect. Third is Leela of Bhagwan. Our minds are such that they need to get absorbed somewhere so that we can find joy in that thing. Bhagwan's Leelas are such, if we don't spend too much, intellectually analyzing those Leelas, mind will get absorbed there. Because they are meant for doing this thing. Leena means to quieten the mind or absorb the mind. In that first invocation prayer that we chant, it has one phrase there, right? Rame chittalaya sada bhavatu me. In Bhagwan Rama, may our mind become lean. Chitta layas sada bhavatu me. May it get absorbed in Bhagwan. So when we sit in front of our Ishtadevata, if we need to absorb our mind in Bhagwan, then some leelas, if we can connect with, it is easier for us to do that. Okay, that is the purpose of leelas of Bhagwan. And leelas are not for emulating. Okay, whatever leelas Bhagwan has done, it is only for quietening the mind, not for emulating. Like Shakatasura, Bhagwan kills, right, just by kicking the cart. So that leela we should enjoy and leave it there. What is for emulating is the next aspect, which is achara. In a given particular situation, how I should respond, that is shown by Bhagwan. Now, one example, we generally hear the statement that truth is bitter, right? Truth is bitter. In Hindi, it makes more power. Sach hamesha kadwa hota hai, like that. Satya kadwa hota hai. But actually, if we see, it depends on how we say it. Okay. Truth is bitter only if we don't know how to say it. Now you see Bhagwan's life, how he presents one same topic in a way that it looks sweet. That day when Bhagwan was supposed to go to Vanavasa, right? It was said that he will be coronated as the king, and something happens, Kaikeyi does something, and finally he is made to go to forest. Now he has to come and break this news to mother, right? She could have said, Bhagwan Dashrath ji has abandoned me, I have to go to forest now. Bhagwan says, Pita Deenu Mohi Kanana Raju. Means my father has given me the kingdom of the forest. I was supposed to get Ayodhya, but now he has made me the king of forest. Same thing he's saying, but he's saying in a way that it doesn't hurt anybody. Those are achara, how to be in this world, and several aspects you can learn in different episodes if you see, and if you see it with this perspective, right? How is Bhagwan conducting himself in that scenario? Lot of things will come out. Just one example we took here, that is called as achara. And last is vichara. Vichara means Bhagwan's teachings. His purpose of coming down and to do dharma sthapana, lot of it Bhagwan says, I will do it through my teaching. Because when Bhagwan was there in manifest form, some people could benefit. But if he has given his teaching, even we can benefit in the same way. Like Arjuna got deluded at that time, but those delusions or the questions that Arjuna had, even we have today. Right? How to control the mind. Mind is very agitating. All of those questions Bhagwan has answered through his teachings. Right? This is the holistic idea of why Bhagwan takes avatara. Nama Rupa, for us to purify the mind. Leela, to quieten the mind. Achara, to tell us how to be in this world. And Vichara, to take us to absolute truth. Now, if you want a simpler way, right, of what is this avatara, I was thinking of some example. This is the closest I could find. All of you must have seen snow, right? It's a beautiful thing that you can see, especially now if you go to some of the cold places. So this snow is like this all, it covers a very large area. From that snow alone, you can make a snowman, right? Means what? That all pervading snow can choose to appear in one particular form. So Bhagwan, who is his entire creation, can choose to appear in one particular aspect of creation. And how many facets of his personality he will manifest depends on Bhagwan. That is called as kalas. How many kalas are manifested in one particular avatar, that depends on Bhagwan. But it is his creation, he can choose to appear in one particular form. Same material, it is not some other material that he is bringing from, but it is in that Virata Rupa, there is one appearance in one particular form. Now this concept of avatara, what did Bhagwan say? I take one of the reasons of taking avatara, Bhagwan says it is because of dharma sthapana, right? That takes us into this next topic of what is dharma, what is adharma, and what is dharma sthapana. Establishment of dharma and adharma. When we were discussing, there are a lot of definitions that came up, in that camp about dharma. And Guruji summarized it for us in this one sentence. There are several facets of dharma, but this is one of the key aspects. What is dharma? He said that which brings prosperity with purity and not at the cost of spirituality. That is called as dharma. In Sanskrit, we call it as abhyudaya and nishrayasa. Abhyudaya means a lot of material prosperity is there, but it is with purity. Nishrayasa means that purity will help me to inquire into subtler things about life and take me towards moksha. Okay. If I have a lot of material prosperity, but that itself, if it becomes bondage, then it is said we should rethink our convictions about dharma. Okay, that is a very simple way of looking at it. That which brings prosperity with purity and not at the cost of spirituality. What we call as values in life. Right? Eternal values of life, that can be a simpler translation of what is dharma. And another point I remember what Guruji had said. He said, what are values? Values are those that we like to see in others. Values are those that we like to see in others. And he gave example. Even if there is a thief, he might be dishonest, but he wants his accountant to be honest. The main point is, adharma doesn't have any ground to stand. Adharma always takes the mask of dharma even to appear in front. Right? So that is the power of these values. And this in Bhagavad Gita, in several places, Bhagwan keeps emphasizing. 12th chapter also he points out so many values, 13th chapter also. All of that is to make us align our vision with dharma. Now this word dharma has many facets, right? And we had seen this in our introduction to Bhagavad Gita. So we'll just take a quick overview of this. So what are the different facets of dharma? So dharma is that which brings integrity. Right? Means these values and all, when they're performed uncompromisingly, that value is what helps us keep things together. Now this definition we can apply in our own family, right? What is my dharma in a family? Doing that by which everybody stays together to maximum possible extent. That is called as dharma. And how will it come? Through values again. Right? Any value if you take, like titiksha for example. Titiksha means forbearance. Now that virtue if I cultivate, that itself is going to contribute in dharma, following dharma in my life. And the result of it is immediate. Titiksha, forbearance, means bearing things which are not according to how we want it to be. Pinpricks of life, that is how Gurudev calls it. I want something, but I don't get that particular thing. Forbearing through those things with a larger vision, that my vision is to keep everything together. That is called as dharma. Second is what we just saw, that which brings prosperity and inner unfoldment. Right? These values, when they can be practiced, they will help us even be successful in the world outside. But with that success will come a lot of lightness of this mind. That is the second aspect. And last one is how to spread this dharma, how to preserve this dharma. It is said by practicing it. Okay, that is the best way to spread dharma and also to preserve dharma. These three are the key points given by Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. He says, why does Bhagwan take avatara? It is because of dharma sthapana. One of the reasons is dharma sthapana. And what is dharma? He says dharma is of this kind. More elaboration we had seen there, that there is one dharma which is pravrutti dharma. Pravrutti dharma means that which will engage me into action. But if I do it in the right way, my mind will become subtler and take me towards nivrutti. Okay, pravrutti means engaging in action, doing karma, doing our duties, but doing it in such a way that it doesn't become another bondage. It makes us mature and takes us into nivrutti. That much I think is good for this topic for now. Another point you might have heard is this statement, right? Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. Dharma protects those who follow dharma. Now you see, even in our day-to-day experience when we see, if we have done the right thing, if we have followed the law, then that law protects us. We become entitled to seek protection under that law. Sometimes if you have done it the right way, right? You put the coin there and you got the ticket, everything, and you put the thing, and still if you are given a ticket, you are entitled to challenge that ticket. If you have followed the law. So that is the meaning of this statement, that if we are abiding by these values, that dharma will protect us. And that protection, we don't have to worry. That is Bhagwan's system, how he does it, that is up to him. And several examples, we see in Yudhishthira's stories in Mahabharata. In that last episode of Mahabharata, right, when Duryodhana goes and hides in that lake, and all the 5 brothers go and they want to call him out. And they say, you have to take a battle, you have to fight. Yudhishthira says, you can choose whom you want to fight with. All of us won't fight together with you. You can choose whom you want to fight against. And then, Duryodhana chooses Bhima. Now you see, Duryodhana also is, interesting character. He does not choose Nakula. He could have chosen Nakula and just defeated Nakula also. So they had some kind of this conviction. We won't go too much into the story. The point was just to say that Yudhishthira, whenever he takes decision, this is the foundation on which he is taking decisions. That if I am following dharma, this dharma will protect me. I don't have to worry how it will do, but that is the law by which this creation works. Now, what is the other side? What is adharma? Right? Adharma is that which takes away our ability to think clearly. Right? Values we called as dharma. All other things which are there, it might be anger, jealousy, greed, all other virtues which are there in me, those virtues will cover my ability to think clearly and also act according to dharma. So these vrittis, these thoughts will be called as adharmic thought. Okay, that is the other side of thing. And this also we see in Mahabharata, where our Duryodhana only says that I know what is dharma. Janami dharmam, nachame pravrutti. Janami papam or janami adharmam, nachame nivrutti. I know exactly what is dharma, but I cannot do it. I know exactly what is adharma. I cannot stop myself from not doing it. But then he puts the blame on Bhagwan. He says it is this Bhagwan who is seated in my heart and he is prompting me to do adharma. This is where he went wrong. First two things are okay. The last two statements, what he says, right? Kenapi devena hridistitena yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. Says Bhagwan says, no, that choice I have given to you. What you want to strengthen in yourself, that responsibility is completely up to you. I will just be like that rain. Whichever thought you choose to strengthen, that thought I will, help you strengthen. So that is the other side. One is dharma, another is adharma, but adharma is not some other thing. It is the same, thought in us which is not allowing us to do dharma and covering our thinking ability. And dharma and adharma always stay together in the same person. At a given point, what becomes stronger makes me think or make me become that particular personality. So Duryodhana also, as we saw, it is not that he didn't have dharmic qualities, but predominance was adharmic qualities. Right? That is how personalities are shaped. But this topic we should understand with where we started. Why did Bhagwan take avatara? Bhagwan took avatara so that these adharmic tendencies can be removed from us. And outside, Ravana getting slayed and all other Rakshasas, that is one aspect of it. But more of that we should see in ourselves, how this play is going on between dharmic thoughts and adharmic thoughts. Okay, that is the other side. Now we'll take a step back. Somebody might ask, why follow dharma? We speak so much about it, values and everything. Why follow dharma? So in our Vedic thinking, the equation is very clear. Dharma gives punya or merits, and those merits bring us happiness. What we want in life is happiness, and Vedas tell us what we need for that happiness is dharmic thoughts. And the other side, adharma gives papa, and that papa brings sorrow. Now this is, a very big picture idea of why one should do dharma and why adharma is so much criticized. But if you want to look at simply, in a simple way, what we want is happiness, but we cannot keep chasing happiness by itself. It is like chasing a shadow. Shadow, if you try to chase, it keeps going away and away. But instead of doing that, if we can chase dharma, means start walking on our own, that shadow just follows us. This point comes in so many places. Even in Bhagavatam, this advice Prahladji gives to all his, fellow students who are sitting there. He says, if we are able to develop love for Bhagwan and do, dharmic things in our life, even if we don't want, happiness will come. Happiness will find its way to our doorsteps just with dharma. Okay, this equation also we should keep in mind that dharma leads to punya and punya leads to sukham. What we want in life is sukham, but we should know where to find it. Now, one more topic this leads us into is dharma sthapana, samsthapana, right? What we saw earlier. Bhagwan has taken avatara to establish dharma. Now, this one word you must have heard many a times called as swadharma. Right? We always have this question, what is dharma and what is swadharma? So they are similar words, but at three different levels we can understand it. So we can say dharma sthapana happens by following our swadharma. So what is our swadharma? Bhagwan says first one is to find our aptitude. Okay, that is one meaning of swadharma. What is it that if I'm doing, I'll be happy in life? What is it that I can commit my life to? If I have found that thing, now this is at a very transactional level. We are not talking about the absolute yet. Just finding our inner calling. And that if we can find it more precisely, then life becomes, a very joyful journey. Every day we don't have to find new reasons to get motivated. That thing itself will keep motivating us and keep us moving forward. That is the first meaning of swadharma. And you see, right? Sometimes you see people who enjoy their work so much, and you sometimes feel what kind of, product is coming out of that work. It could be a musician, it could be a very simple thing also. Somebody who likes to cook, for example, right? That is their inner calling, and they will do it with so much love, so much precision. That thing we should find for ourselves, right? What is that thing which I naturally like to do? Second is, it is not just sufficient to find that calling, but it should also connect us with Bhagwan. Doing that duty without any complaint, because no matter what duty it is, it will always have some kind of things that we don't like. Right? It will always come with some tag attached to it. That is why it is said, dharma or swadharma is when we learn to do it without having any complaints, but most importantly, doing that for Bhagwan. In Bhagavatam it is said, Notpadayet yadi ratim shrama evahi kevalam. If the work that we are doing, if it doesn't make us sweeter, if it doesn't bring love for Bhagwan in our life, that work is only labor. That work is just we are sweating ourselves, but not moving forward in our spiritual path. Right? Inner unfoldment or even happiness that we want, that aspect is getting missed somewhere. So that is the second aspect, right? First is to find our calling, but in addition to that, if we can, devote it to some higher cause, which is Bhagwan. So that is second aspect of Swadharma. Third aspect is the absolute meaning. Our own true Swadharma is nature of truth. That pure consciousness. So Dharma word means that which is the essential nature of something. So my essential nature is the nature of happiness, is of the nature of consciousness. Abiding in that is the highest Swadharma. Examples you must be familiar with. We say dharma of sugar is sweetness, right? Means without sweetness, there is nothing called as sugar. So without consciousness, without existence, there is nothing called as me. That is why it is said, that is our absolute Swadharma. Okay? At different levels, we should look at it. And when all of this happens in a very clear way, then Dharma Sthapana happens. Right? That is the connection between Swadharma and Dharma. All right. So now this takes us into another topic. What is this now? What is the nature of Brahman? Because until now, we have seen Jiva Swarupa, nature of Jiva we saw. Then we saw Jagat, about creation we discussed. And then we discussed about Ishvara. Right? 3 entities we discussed. Now the thought process is, where did all these 3 things come from? Right? What is the nature of that consciousness which we just spoke about? What is its nature with attributes and what is its nature without attributes? So this takes us to the next topic of Brahma Swarupa, which is Saguna and Nirguna. And you'll realize a lot of points are coming back now. Okay, what we discussed earlier, that alone is coming back, but with some more clarity. And Guruji used to always scold us for discussing further topics in previous topic. What used to happen is, whenever one topic was given, on that day we would exhaust all 14 days topic. We would say, I have given it later, why are you discussing right now? Go systematically, go step by step. All these topics will keep coming back again, but they will come with something more now. Okay, that is how this process of study is. So when we really inquire into this Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, the question becomes, are there really 3 things? Right? We started with 3, and that is where all of us start our inquiry into. We saw Jiva means those 5 things. You remember those circles that we had drawn? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes I feel this graphical representation makes things away from us. What is right here, we try to see it different from us. But I hope it serves the purpose of understanding the concept. We should see it in us. What were those 5 things? Gross body, subtle body, causal body, reflection of consciousness, and pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, that is the most important part here. When we spoke about Jagat, what did we say? Entire creation has come from that same consciousness. And when we discussed about Ishvara, we said it is the same consciousness with Maya Upadhi, with this Samashti, total Upadhi, becomes Ishvara. So that takes us to the question that these 3 things are there only from Upadhi standpoint, but actually speaking, it is all one. That one thing is what we call as Brahman, what we call as consciousness. Okay, that one alone is appearing as 3. What is the nature of this consciousness? Then it is said that consciousness is Nirguna. It is without any attributes. It doesn't have any qualities. Now imagine, just think about anything and everything around, right? It is even hard to fathom something is there without attributes. That is this consciousness. When that same consciousness takes attributes, that is called as Saguna. Okay, with attributes, the same consciousness appears as Saguna. It has not become Saguna, it is appearing as Saguna. Okay, that appearing word is very important because later that is what is going to be the key. And what is that appearance? We say it is all-knowing, all-powerful. Those are attributes, right? But we should understand both aspects, with attributes and without attributes. So whenever we hear the word Ishvara, first thought that should come is it is the consciousness along with attributes. Okay. Now somebody asks, why this Saguna? Why can't we directly go to Nirguna? Gurudev asked this question to Taponji Maharaj. Okay. And Mahatmas have a very unique way of answering. Gurudev asked, why are you describing about Saguna? Why don't you directly describe about Nirguna? Taponji Maharaj said, bring a glass of water. Okay. And Gurudev brought Not this glass, there must be some olden days, right? Like a lota that we have. That he must have brought. Or kamandolo or something. And Taponji Maharaj is asking, I asked you to bring water. Why did you bring the glass along with it? Right? If I'm asking for water, why did you bring glass along with it? The point is, that which is without attributes can never be pointed out directly because it is not having anything that you can point out to. That is why attributes are given along with it. But Bhagwan has given us the thinking capacity so that we can shift our attention from Saguna to Nirguna. Just like here, take that water and leave the glass aside. This is a concept or one shloka which comes in Veda Stuti of Bhagavatam. Very beautiful section where it says, Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshye Nirgune Gunavruttayah Katham Charanti Shrutayah Sakshad Sad Asatah Pare. Means these Vedas are doing stuti now of Bhagavan and saying, how can we point out to you, O Lord? Because you are that supreme consciousness who is beyond any attributes. How can we point out to you? So then the answer is given in that same stotram, Veda Stuti, that Vedas will always point at Saguna, but they will expect us to do mananam, do thinking, and understand Nirguna. Okay, they will always point at Saguna, but through Vichara, we should understand it is Nirguna. And next shloka that comes after this is this concept where it says that Bhagwan has given all these faculties of thinking and so on so that we can inquire about this fact. He has given Saguna Sakara Rupa but wants us to understand Nirguna Rupa. Okay, that is where all the sadhana chatushtaya, everything is getting discussed. Why we need that qualification so that we can do this kind of inquiry. So we'll pause here and next segment we will continue from here. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om.